Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Rico,
I'm Tony.
and this is Relatively Sound, the channel where it is the new year, and we don't feel any different. Today, Tony and I we're ringing in the new year with our new album for album episode. This week, I have given Tony his third Death Cab For Cutie album. Before this, he had never heard before the first two episodes we did Death Cab, he had never heard a Death Cab album in its entirety. I first gave him Narrow Stairs. You would probably say top 5 albums I've given you on this channel overall.
I would say so. It feels very consistent. I think I like pretty much all the songs on there. There's a few that really stand out to me, songwriting and production wise. So, yeah, definitely love that album. So I'm always excited to get more Death Cab.
And then I gave you Asphalt Meadows, which, as probably Death Cab fans are watching this, they're like, why would you go from an album that is considered probably like top 3 for a lot of people to one that's like their newest, doesn't have Chris Walla, their guitarist, on the album, their founding guitarist. So people are probably like, why give them like a new album? I just was really digging it when it came out some years ago. I thought Tony would appreciate it. I think you enjoyed it, but it's definitely not one you've gone back to.
I definitely need to give it a re-listen, especially after hearing this next album a few more times.
So I decided, with it being the new year, kind of on theme for the first track on this album, I would just go ahead and give Tony Death Cab's probably biggest album, their most like well-loved album, and that is their fourth studio album, Transatlanticism. Now, Tony, you gave this album a couple listens this week, and I am curious what you think about it. Now, for our viewers, I did actually listen to this album with Tony. So I did get to hear his first initial reactions to the songs. But I am very curious, Tony, of what you thought of this album when you gave it a couple more listens on your own. This album, I told you kind of halfway through listening to the album that it is kind of like a loose concept album. There's definitely themes of like long distance relationships, like the need to be like with someone. There's definitely some kind of like isolation, kind of more darker themes on some of the songs. And then some of the songs definitely use like geography as a way to communicate this long distance relationships, like the title track, speaking about the Atlantic Ocean. He talks about maps on the opening track. So, kind of with those themes, I'm kind of curious when you give this album a couple more listens if that's something that you kind of were paying attention more to, or if like this album is still kind of just like a solid album for you, but nothing amazing. Because I will say, and I think people will back me up in the comments, this is probably considered like a Mount Rushmore album when it comes to like indie rock albums. Like it is like a very important album when it comes to like indie rock. Like it's up there for a lot of people. And if people like listen to Death Cab, but don't like listen to everything that they've ever put out, it's probably their first couple albums, but probably this is like the big one for those people.
So I feel like you kind of asked me two different questions there in one. So to kind of crank out maybe the easier one about it being a concept album and how that affected my listening experience. It didn't necessarily affect it too much. I mean, I think most albums, you can kind of tell when a songwriter is into certain themes. And so like, as far as like building an entire narrative, I don't know. Like, I'm sure maybe to him it's a concept album and I guess I could kind of see it, but it didn't really affect my listening experience. I mean, yeah, the themes about geography, relationships, a lot too about like intimacy between like sounds like a younger relationship between people exploring their bodies, as he quite literally says. So yeah, I mean, I think those are themes that are like good to explore and write about and stuff like that. And it did feel emotional throughout the album and the performances and the writing. Now, how did I like this album? I enjoyed it more after a few listens. On a first listen, I don't want to say it was underwhelming or anything, but maybe because we listened to it together, maybe it didn't really allow me to maybe sink into some of the more tender moments, which I think this album definitely has those moments.
Bro can get tender with his brother.
Don't say it like that. So for me, something I think that kind of Well, something that threw me for kind of a loop at first was a lot of these songs didn't really follow a verse, chorus type of structure. A lot of them kind of felt like one section, maybe a musical break, same section again, and then like a bridge. And then honestly, sometimes it just wrote it out till the end like that. And so, I mean, I would say it's fair to say like Narrow Stairs, and if I recall as well for Asphalt Metals, they're a little bit more kind of structured like pop songs, more obvious choruses and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, I don't need every song to have a super catchy, hooky chorus or anything like that. But I think maybe it just kind of it didn't. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it, so I think I kind of needed a little bit of a different mindset. But yeah, I think something that I mean, I promise I will get to the good here. I think something that kind of held back the album a little bit for me is I didn't love some of the structuring in the middle. I thought it really kind of just dipped too low in energy, and I feel like it kind of took away from some of the songs, mostly around Tiny Vessels through Passenger Seat is kind of that area.
So by that
Uh,
you mean not the song structures, but like the way the album
the sequencing.
flowed? Okay.
Yeah, because Tiny Vessels is one of those songs that is kind of mostly the same. There's like that big bridge, but then it's mostly just verse. And then, after the bridge, it's more verse just with drums added.
See,
So,
people love the transition from Tiny Vessels to the title track. I mean, people are actually pissed because, as far as I know, any repressing of this album on vinyl, because I think the copy I have, and I think every copy is 2 LP, and they split those two songs. They're not on the same side.
oh,
Tiny Vessels is the last song on the second side of the first LP, and then Trans begins the second half of the album. So people are kind of pissed about that because those two songs do kind of flow into one
they
another.
transition into each other well. But I think what you kind of end up getting is, and let me explain myself. You end up getting like 15 minutes of pretty steady music. Now I understand that the title track does build in intensity, but during that long build, it is very, very repetitive. And we will get into that song more in detail. And so I think by the time we're done with that, kind of a lot of the ambience and the delicacy of Passenger Seat, I'm a little bit. It's kind of like the opposite of fatigue in the sense that it's not like, oh my gosh, it's been too much, but it's just kind of like I feel like I can't appreciate it as much as it, like if it came after a song like Expo 86 or The Sound of Settling, like I feel like that Passenger Seat would really stand out, especially on a first listen. But now that I've had time to kind of listen to the songs by themselves and through the album again, I feel like a song like Passenger Seat I really can appreciate now.
That's good because I feel like I agree and disagree with you. I agree with you that it would stand out more, but I feel like if it came after like Sound of Settling, it would be too stark of a difference. And maybe that's why I
Well,
like
I mean,
Passenger Seat so much because my hot take on this album, which I told you when we were listening to it together, is that the title track is the band's most overrated song. I found appreciation for it over the years, but it is still like it's probably my least favorite song on the whole album.
so as a fan or as a part of the fan base, why don't you go ahead and make your case for why it's the most overrated? Because I remember you had expressed you might get some heat for this.
because like okay, I think yeah, lyrically it's great, and lyrically it is the pinnacle of the album. Like it is him, Ben tying together the long distance relationship with the geography of the album, but like musically, I just can't get behind it. Like, I mean, I remember when the song started, you were like, okay, we just get some like basic chords, and like the build is it takes way too long to get to the build. And even you said like, okay, the one thing saving the song is that guitar riff,
Love that
but
guitar riff. That is a really
it's
good guitar part.
it's like it's not one of those guitar parts where I love so much that I could hear it on an endless loop for 20-30 minutes. Like I do get a little tired of it. The drums, like I feel like on this album and a lot of Death Cab albums, the drums are like a highlight. On this song, I just don't like the kind of slow, steady, like and yeah, I know it builds and it gets louder, but I just don't like that. I don't like the groove. The song like lacks a groove, and the only part of the song that I really enjoy is when he sings the "Come On" part near the end because I feel like the song finally has a little life, but it just takes way too long to get to that moment for me.
Yeah, it takes until like the last 2 minutes for it to really burst. But when it does kind of burst open, it doesn't really get more energetic or change. It just gets a lot more coarse in the production. The guitars are more distorted and whatnot. And then, like you said,
Yeah.
the vocal comes in.
And before
Uh,
anyone tells me I don't understand the song like on the lyrical sense, like no, I think this, like I said, I think the song, the best part about it is the lyrics, especially, and I can relate to them. Hey, I was in a long distance relationship, so I should know better than probably a lot of fans. But I just, it's not enough for me to like really enjoy the song. Maybe if there was like a shorter version or like a reworked version. I even saw the song live, and the whole time I was like, I wish they were closing the show with Bixby instead, because to me that's like the far superior song.
yeah, so, I mean, I don't really want to spend too long. I don't want to say shitting on the song, but I don't want to spend too long kind of ragging on it, especially when it's a lot of people's favorites.
Well,
It's
yeah.
just
So
not really a
what?
song for us.
So what were the best aspects of the album for you? Because it sounds, because I was going to ask you what was like your favorite and least favorite thing about the album. Sounds like your least favorite was maybe the sequencing, especially like in the middle of the album, and
Just
maybe
kind of the
the
lull of it.
and maybe the fact that some of the songs lacked, kind of that standard verse chorus kind of, feel. So like what do you think the album did like well?
So I think for me, what the album did well, and this, you can maybe say that maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but I did think this album was pretty cohesive with its style. Um, and I guess what I mean by that is it has like this acoustic thing going where it's kind of mellow. I don't want to, I mean, at times a little bit dark, right? And even when it does explode out to "We Look Like Giants," right? There's still those moments where it does get kind of back to that kind of dark ambient thing going on. So I do think the cohesion makes well for like a moody album. Also, I really like the album cover too. I think it looks pretty dope. The colors.
Better than Narrow Stairs, because I know you like that album cover too.
Um, that's kind of a tough one. I don't know if I can answer that one. I don't
Would
know
you
if I
wear
can answer
this
that
on a
one.
t-shirt?
Yeah, I probably would. Wait, the question is, would you do it where it's just like a black T-shirt with like the frame, like the album cover, or where the whole album, like the whole shirt is like that, like that like beige wall color, and then there's just a bird on it?
Honestly, I think that actually.
That'd be cool. I don't know if it would look too good on my skin color though. I feel like it might just be, I don't know. But anywho's, yeah, yeah. And so I think for me, so yeah, talking about like the cohesion of the album, I think that does allow some of the songs to stand out a little more. Like the sound of settling, like Death of an Interior Decorator, We Look Like Giants. Um, and then yeah, kind of the lull of the album, maybe what was its strength also led to some of its weaknesses. But kind of maybe going back to or just going to some of the individual songs that I really liked. The New Year opener really did grow on me a lot. I think on a first listen, something I didn't really love was maybe like the groove or maybe the lack of it. Like the drums were pretty busy all over the place, which I don't know if I really wanted that in a Death Cab song. I don't
Interesting.
know. It just felt like maybe too much. But I don't think it really bothers me too much anymore. I really like Lightness actually. I think that's one of my favorite vibe tracks.
That's a
I
you song for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me of musically like almost something off of not really off of that Big Sur album I gave you.
Mm.
But I don't know. It's not like trancey, but it's just like I don't know. I just like that particular vibe. The little what oh he does as I think is a good moment in his vocals. I will say a lot of the songs I liked when he went up for like a high falsetto in a couple spots. Um, I also did. I think my favorite stretch of the album is probably the last three songs. Maybe honestly, the last three and the first like three are pretty good. Which is I guess is most of the album. Uh, but yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that the album starts off pretty explosive with the New Year, and then you kind of get a couple songs that are kind of that kind of vibey middle ground, and then Expo you take it up a notch, and then the sound of settling. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. I do like it. I had expressed that I think it's a little silly. I forget the noise he makes in the chorus, the bop bas. Saying that after this is the sound of settling, bop 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 bop. I don't love that, but that's kind of a nitpick. I think on the experience of listening to the song, it's not a deal breaker. It's
Have
supposed
you
to
have you
be.
never settled before? Because that is the sound.
Well, anyways, I like the song like Death of Interior Decorator. I thought that one was exciting and interesting. I think that one went a lot of different places. It was energetic. I like the dropout in it where you get that build, and he does like a lot of the fast vocals when he's saying, what is he saying there? The girls were all there. They traded their vows. Like I feel like it really ramps up naturally. And then yeah, if I had to pick a favorite song, I might agree with you. It's a lack of color.
Wow,
Uh,
because you went from because I think I told you before the song started when we were listening to it together. I think I told you like, "Hey, this is my favorite on the album." And I think after it finished, you were like, "Yeah, I liked it, but it's like it didn't make it seem you didn't make it seem like it like really affected you that much. Like you enjoyed it any more than any other song off the album."
well, I think a big thing to me is like one of those songs where you like read the lyrics, and when you're trying to interpret them, it's didn't really do much for me. But when I was just listening to the song and I was enjoying that guitar riff, and I really like when it kind of changes chords in that verse, like the second half of them, like that's a cool move. It was one of those ones where once you start listening to the music and kind of enjoying it on your own, then the lyrics, some of the lines, you kind of make your own relationships to, Oh, this makes me think about this with my life. Da 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 da. So I think on an analytical listen, it maybe didn't do as much, but more on an emotional, enjoying experience. It really did grow on me. It does manage to stand out from all the other songs on the album. Um, where even though there is like the pads and stuff like that, a lot of it really is just that acoustic guitar. You mentioned it being a bit Elliott Smith like. I like the backup vocals in it, the harmonies, where it is like the and we don't really get a lot of that on this album. Um, I do really like the line, "This is fact, not fiction," for the first time in years. Yeah, and you know what? As I am kind of just reviewing the track listing here, didn't realize there was a 10th anniversary edition with demos for what looks like all of the songs.
Yeah,
So that is something that I will be checking out later. I wish I caught that sooner.
I didn't.
Um,
I thought about telling you, but I was just kind of like, I was like, no, he should just focus on like because the same thing happened with the Asphalt Meadow album is that they had released an acoustic version of the album, which is definitely different than what you're talking about, which is like the demos of Transatlanticism before like the album was like fully made. But I was like, I want you because I will say they're not under they're cool and especially cool for like the songs that are like the longer like the title track we look like giants, but it's nothing like mind. It's not as cool as you think they're gonna be.
I'm hearing the New Year start with like a drum machine right now. That demo.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, you
so
might find that you might like the groove of that one better just because the drums are different.
maybe who knows? Yeah. So let me real quick maybe end on just kind of like how I feel about the album compared to their other ones that I've heard. I think the thing with Transatlanticism is once again I mentioned it, the cohesion. It's very much of a certain palette where I was kind of just right now. I need to give it a full re-listen, but to Asphalt Meadows, and I kind of forgot there's like some guitars with chorus. There's different synth sounds. Like it's definitely new colors, and I think with
Yeah.
Narrow Stairs, it's I feel like a lot of it is not a lot of keys and stuff. A lot of just guitars, um, and piano. Right, I think a good amount of piano actually on that one. Um,
So you're saying less synths, more piano because you said keys and you kind of confused me, but you just meant
I'm
synth.
sorry. I meant like synths and
Oh,
pads.
okay, okay.
Like Transatlanticism has a lot of pads and stuff
Yeah,
like that. Where Asphalt Metal sounds more like more what I think of like a synth lead. I
yeah.
know I'm probably not doing the best description of what you would say a pad, a synth, and stuff. But I feel like Narrow Stairs had a lot of piano. Like just I will possess your heart. The piano is really great on that song. Uh, and I really love the production in Narrow Stairs. It's just like a clean, good record. You can hear all the instruments well. And I think you get a good variety of songs. So yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. Now, I will say, I think when did Transatlanticism come out? 2003, it looks like. So yeah, so like 5 years after
I know, I hate saying that
Transatlanticism,
title. It's just like a mouthful.
it is you get Narrow Stairs. So that's a pretty decent chunk of time in between. And then obviously to Asphalt Meadows is a long amount of time. So it's cool to see that they still managed to have that Death Cab songwriting style, very much the Ben Gibbard kind of lyrics and vocal delivery, but that they are trying different things. Because, I think it's kind of a bummer when bands stick a little too much to the same sound. It just seems like, especially, there's so many talented bands. I would love to hear them explore different ways and stuff. But I digress. I digress. But yeah, that's how I feel about Transatlanticism. I appreciate you giving me this one. I thought this was a good pick.
Last
Um,
real quick question. Could you see an argument of why this is considered one of like the bigger indie rock albums of the 2000s?
I can. I'll say it. Maybe I'll say it like this. I mean, I know indie just means independent, right? The
Yeah.
the term is more technical than it is a style. I would say I think by definition it's more of a technical term. But when we talk about indie, there's definitely a certain sound,
Well,
right?
yeah, because I think you could classify Elliott Smith as being indie.
Even though, yeah. So if we're not thinking about it in that terms, like I don't know, I feel like this album just does have a certain sound of its time that I think a lot of people could really get with and appreciate that acoustic style with the really clean vocals. So I could see it. It's especially I imagine I get the feeling that a lot of people that got into this album probably got in it at a certain age. That it was probably really important to them because there's tons of records for me, right? I heard it at the right age, at the right time in my life, and those records are monumented as being some of my favorites and the most important to me. So I can totally see why. Um, and it's not that these themes don't apply to me at all for this record. Like I can't understand it or can't appreciate it or look at it from a different lens. But I definitely can see that. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to think about how fans on a first listen enjoyed the record versus how they listen to it now. And if it to them, I mean, these are well written songs. They sound good, so they 100% hold up. But I'm just curious on that experience. So if anyone wants to let us know, I'm not sure, Rico, for you, how I don't know when you first heard this album.
I mean, when I got into Death Cab, actually, our sister Tessa showed me Narrow Stairs first, and that kind of made me appreciate them
Do you know
more.
how she like heard of like what song she heard or where?
Well, I mean, growing up, I know I did buy an iTunes like "I Will Possess Your Heart" because I remember seeing that music video on VH1 and enjoying the
Oh,
song.
okay, yeah.
And then I think I bought like "I'll Follow You Into the Dark," and then I think maybe she bought the album at like half price books, or maybe she got a copy from the library, and then she listened to it. She was like, "Oh, I really like this whole album." So I listened to it because I'm like, "Oh, at least I know that one single from it," and then I really enjoyed it. And then I started, I think, maybe from the library checking out their other albums. I'm like, oh, Plans is a great album too. And I kind of like was going backwards because, like, at that point, I think their most recent album was Codes and Keys, which I think is a really underrated album, but I think a lot of fans were kind of iffy about it. And I started going backwards, and I was kind of like, oh, I think I like Codes and Keys way more than Trans. So then I started going even more backwards, and I was like, wow, their like first three or four albums have this like really lo-fi kind of bedroom sound production, and the songwriting is like a lot more linear. And I'm like, wow, I really don't enjoy it as much as like their later work.
Okay,
And
yeah.
now I've kind of gone back on. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I enjoy Transatlanticism a lot more. Maybe not as much as like the average Death Cab fan, but I'm even enjoying their first three albums a bit more. I'm understanding like why these songs and albums are celebrated as much as they are. I still lean kind of more in the middle of their career, and like I said, I love their last album, Asphalt Meadows, a lot. But um, I think, like you said, it's going to be kind of like what you listen to in like those formative years of your life, like growing up. Like I said, some people Plans is their favorite album because they probably just listened to it at the right time of their lives, and for me, that was Narrow Stairs. And I'm sure there's even fans who really got into their later albums like Kintsugi a lot. And I was like, oh, that's my favorite album from the band. But I think a lot of people who were growing up with the band just listened to this album at the right time. But I felt like I had to give it to you because it is like considered their biggest album. And I do want people who are watching this video right now to drop us a comment and let me know if I should give Tony another Death Cab album, and if so, which one. Because to me, it's either like I give you Plans, which would give you that 3 album run between this, Plans, Narrow Stairs, or do I go backwards and show you some of their first albums, which have a completely different kind of sound and production to them? So drop us comments to let us know where we should go next with Death Cab.
I would be interested in Plans because I do know I will follow you into the dark, and I do know what Sarah said. And I like those ones. I like those ones. Those are good ones. Really strong songs.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll get there eventually. I definitely have some other albums and other bands I want to explore. We'll give Death Cab a little rest. I already know what I'm giving you next, and it's like I feel like a 180 from this album. I don't know what you're going to give me next, though.
You hinted at it to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, I did. I think straight up tell you. It was mostly
Oh, actually, you did. Yeah,
I
yeah.
did, but
Duh.
it was to confirm you never heard the album.
Yes.
But our viewers don't know, and they're gonna have to wait because I'm gonna keep it a surprise. But your album that you're gonna give me will be coming up next, at least before the album I give you. So, and I don't know what you're giving me yet, so there is some suspense. But we'll be back next week, either with your album, or if not, I am recording another solo video. So stay tuned for that. But until then, we hope you take care and you will be hearing from us soon. Bye bye.